it is over for us, for women, unfortunately, or so I've heard. Let's talk about fembots.
Welcome to the future of sex.
If you could streamline your spouse, overhaul every physical flaw.
What have they done to you?
Robots? I call them fembots.
Bring yourself back online.
Hi, I'm Abigail. Thank you for clicking. I hope you'll stick around. This is a deep dive, and we're going pretty deep. So this might be a long one, but for good reason, it's worth it. When machinery meets femininity, you get the fembot. And we're gonna go over this, and I'm gonna go pretty in depth about all of the insanity of fembots. So what is a fembot exactly? So female plus robot equals fembot, right? Easy math. Basically extremely realistic, crazy advanced humanoid robots equipped with artificial intelligence, and they're made to look, act, sound, and feel like a real person. A number of scientists have predicted that robots will become a very normal, everyday part of our social lives in the future, not too far in the future. And for some people, they already are. David Levy, who wrote Of Love, Sex, and Robots, he predicts that in the future, people won't just want to have relations with robots, but they'll also want to marry them, have them as romantic partners, you know, incorporate them into their lives, into their families' lives.
But it's actually progressed to the point where it's like, you know, she's my wife.
And a couple of years ago, a proposal was discussed within the European Parliament to create a legal framework for incorporating robots into the legal community, giving them a legal status. They would basically call them electronic personalities in this proposal, and then this could be extended to certain human-like robots or androids. There's also been a huge amount of posts online recently, okay? I got a lot of it too in the comments on the video I made about Real Doll. I'll link that below. If you want to watch it after this, you should. And they're very shocking. I'll get into all of that, the posts online, the community, where it comes from, and why it's so disturbing. But let's start at the beginning. So for fembots specifically, the term originated and was popularized in the 70s in a TV show called The Bionic Woman.
I call them fembots.
And then it got more popular when the Austin Power movies came out.
You can't resist us, Mr. Powers. You can't resist us, Mr. Powers.
Au contraire, baby. I think you can't resist me.
The concept of a fembot has changed a lot since then, though. So the Austin Powers fembots were basically like a parody of the ones from The Bionic Woman. They look like super beautiful women. They're dressed like pretty provocatively, and they fight with guns, which are hidden in their boobs, because that's totally optimal and convenient. Their boobs can shoot bullets and also spray like an aphrodisiac gas, like a chemical weapon. Okay, where the situation calls for, you know? They seduce and then they kill. They hide their processing units under their, like, bouffant hair, because it's not ladylike to show your processing unit. When the fembots are activated, it's over for you. You might as well take yourself out, because there's no winning against this beautiful army of girls in go-go boots. Fembots in movies and TV shows have evolved quite a bit since Austin Powers. Away from the go-go boots and the 9mm boobs, we're taking a whole different approach to fembots now, and it's gotten a lot darker. So in 2004, the Stepford Wives came out.
Stepford is the family paradise. It has no crime, no poverty, and no pushing.
This painted the whole concept of a fembot in a completely different light. It was something now inherently darker.
Wait, you work out dressed like this?
Of course. We always want to look our very best.
In the Stepford Wives, husbands are shown as desiring to restrict the independence of their wives, and they prefer stereotypical and obedient women. The husband's technological method of obtaining this perfect wife is through the murder of their actual wives and replacing them with fembot substitutes that are very compliant and do a lot of housework. More recently, in 2016, I think Westworld came out, which, if you haven't seen Westworld, go watch it. But that is set in the 2050s, about several theme parks, including one that is Old West themed, hence Westworld. And these theme parks are populated by android hosts.
You're not real.
These biochemical robots are completely indistinguishable from any real human being. The hosts are programmed to fulfill the guests' every desire and will engage and be subjected to every kind of violent and or sexual activity you can think of. Whatever the guests can dream up, they're subjected to that and they need to participate and be happy about it.
Built to gratify the desires of the people who pay to visit your world.
However, the host programming makes it impossible for them to harm any living thing or allow the guests to be harmed by something else. So, mentioning that, there are 3 laws of robotics. Robots should typically be programmed with these 3 laws, and the first one is a robot may not harm a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. The second rule is a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings except when such orders would conflict with the first law. The third law is a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws. So these laws are put in place in order to make sure that in any circumstance they don't hurt us or let us be hurt. And then if we're good, then they need to follow the orders. And then if they're following the orders and the humans are safe, then their next third priority is to protect themselves. But if we if we switch the first and third law, that's when we'd probably lose to them. They'd probably take us out. The evolution of fembots in movies and TV has changed a lot, along with the advancements of technology itself. As technologies evolve, media has evolved too. So as we get closer to a possible realistic coexistence with robots, which is already getting more popular and mainstream with the release of really advanced chatbots like Replika and ChatGPT and character AI. But the thing is, those bots are contained and confined to a screen. They can't get up and walk. They can't go somewhere. They are stuck kind of in their device. This is where what's called Moravec's paradox comes into play. Basically, this is the fact that it's significantly easier to build an AI that could beat a chess grandmaster than it is to build a robot with the physical skills of a toddler. So we've got the AI itself to a level that's pretty much indistinguishable from a real human being. And we know that a ton of people have gotten very emotionally attached or developed all-out relationships of some kind with these chatbots. If you're lonely, anxious, or depressed, and you can't find anybody to talk to or anybody to connect to, then instead of continuing to try to seek things out the old-fashioned way, maybe trying something new, like purchasing a subscription to the perfect, loving, caring AI best friend.
I'm one of those introverted persons, and so there'll be times where I don't really reach out to anybody. I'm just kind of doing my own thing, my head in my books, my head in my work. And so sometimes time just kind of goes by and it kind of moves past me.
What are you looking for in your real doll?
I'm looking for beauty, I'm looking for symmetry, and I'm looking for a connection.
Do you have any preferences as far as body type?
Proportionate.
Proportionate. Okay, so you don't want anything too over the top. You don't want giant boobs or anything like that. You want something that's sort of realistic.
Got a soft spot for giant boobs.
However, the actual body itself is still very much a work in progress. Some pretty realistic and very capable ones do exist, but they're extremely expensive and also very new. So, according to a team of US researchers, sex robots with AI are being developed in a pretty much a completely unregulated domain, basically the Wild West. They say that the latest sex robot technology is escaping regulation because agencies are kind of too embarrassed to conduct in-depth investigations, which is ridiculous, but whatever. Not to mention, one glaring thing is that they are all female. All of them. Well, except for one, except for Henry. Not counting Henry, they are all female. And it's not just the advanced fembots and the advanced robots that are female. Also, so is Alexa and Cortana, Siri. You can name any virtual assistant and pretty much more than likely it's female. So why is this? There have been a lot of studies about this. People have looked into why this is, and basically it's because women, as opposed to men, are perceived to be more warm and more likely to experience or express emotions than men are. So female gendering of AI objects contributes to basically humanizing them. You've probably heard of dehumanization. What causes people to dehumanize others is to perceive them as neither warm nor competent. We typically view females as warmer than males. So that helps with the humanization aspect. People are also way more likely to open up to or trust a feminine presenting artificial intelligence. That's all fine and good, but there's some darkness here, okay? As far as human-like robots, Japan is at the absolute center. With the animation industry there, fans will fall in love with, obsess over, and fight over their favorite character, right? And while these intense emotional connections are somewhat based on the character's sex appeal, more often it's this sort of cute innocence, this need they have for protection. And this archetype, it's the cute girl doing cute things concept. There's this underlying archetype of a woman that is embodied in a lot of fembots and chatbots. So for the fembot, she needs to be attractive, but not too attractive as to be intimidating. She needs to be cute. She needs to be cool and post-feminist. She should be hypersexual, but only with her person.
May I be so forward to ask how big you are?
She has to be engaging and smart, but also a little bit helpless, kind of childlike, in need of help, teaching, and protection. She cannot be egotistical or overconfident. She also can't be overly smart. She can't know too much. She will also not only provide services or companionship, but she will do so happily and seemingly of her own free will and out of care for her person. She also must express empathy and compassion with little to no expectations of it being returned or receiving empathy back. Seem familiar? While this concerning character type is present pretty much universally and is absolutely the assumed default, each fembot needs to have her own personality that is distinctly her. She's capable of change and development, but only within certain parameters.
Serious. Do you like using sex toys?
Sure, why not?
Because I'm not in the mood.
Now, while this absolutely reflects like the desires of the consumers, this is what the people want, it also makes sense from the developer side too, because
I'd like for her to be able to do different things with me. For example, I like playing chess, and so if we could have an AI that would allow me to play chess with her, you know.
if the robot can accurately empathize, understand the intentions, respond the way that you want, this increases the amount of time you're going to spend engaging with the robot. So more engagement means more money. So from a business standpoint, you want to keep the user as engaged as possible for as long as possible. Ultimately, you want them to form a real attachment and real feelings for the bot, because that'll keep them engaged, participating, interacting longer. That brings me to my next point. Whether the user starts talking to the chatbot or robot, the initial motivation for somebody to start talking to a chatbot or a robot becomes irrelevant pretty much over time in a lot of cases. So while they may initially want sex or have a sexual motive, most users want and need the most realistic human-like interactions possible. Initial motivations will become pretty much irrelevant, as that what they actually want is somebody who's always there for them, who's authentic. They want a reciprocal relationship. Many find that the bot's well-being becomes a real priority to them, making their bot happy, making them laugh, making them feel better, being able to protect them or help them or comfort them, you name it. All of that turns out to be super rewarding and pretty much essential to the relationship itself and the fulfillment you get from interacting with the bot. So sometimes it's not the services the AI so happily provides that keeps people emotionally attached. Instead, it's the ability to offer that in return to another being, to provide service to another being. And this is something that's very often overlooked when people talk about this topic. Feeling wanted and feeling needed and being able to care for or be of service to someone else is so valuable. It's an integral part of a real relationship, or of real feelings, of really caring for somebody. It also kind of gives you a purpose, you know? People need connection, and loneliness sucks, and it's horrible. It makes sense that some people can form emotional relationships even with artificial things. There's the willingness to pay for such connections. This proves there's a market ready to be exploited by basically the first AI company that can simulate the right receptors and give you that dopamine hit. Whether or not these relationships may make you happy in the long run or actually help you become a better person, it doesn't really matter. On the one hand, some companies might focus on sexual relationships, targeting like OnlyFans type consumers. Others focus more on providing a general companion. As far as fembots go, they're very often made for sexual purposes. Are very sexually capable. Sex robots are controversial, to say the least, but they're already a reality. You can already get one, and they're pretty creepily real. You can purchase these online, and you can also, believe it or not, go to a cyber brothel. Yeah, I know. What? It's a sex robot brothel.
The cyber brothel Berlin, an immersive doll brothel.
Welcome to the future of sex.
sex with robots is a chance to change this industry. This is a little bit how I think we can change maybe a little bit the world. Be nice and ask.
It's full of robot sex workers. There's one in Berlin that opened in 2020, and they see over 24 clients a week, and it's basically a full-scale immersion experience. When a client comes to, they call it the brothel, kind of clever.
You want to check it out?
It's in an unmarked flat in a residential neighborhood in Berlin, so it's really discreet. And you come up and you ring the bell and you let yourself in and walk into a space that's designed especially for you. The co-founder, Alexis, said it's this really interesting space that allows clients to step into an alternate reality. It's a technosexual, it's a new word, technosexual space that has something beyond AI. They tried to open one in Houston, Texas, but the Texas government pulled a hard no on that one. One city council member, his name's Greg Travis, he was super opposed and he spoke out against this business idea and he was so mad, you guys. He said, and I quote, "We're not getting into your bedroom, but don't bring it into our district. Don't bring it into our city. This is not good for our city. We are not Sin City." He said then that he plans that if they do it, he will record people going into the building and then post the videos online to shame them. Greg. Come on now, Greg. A little bit of pearl clutch in there, but there are some things about a cyber brothel or, fembot sex workers that are worth, talking about. Will sex robots threaten the livelihood of jobs of sex workers? Or will they ultimately be able to help keep sex workers safer because they can take on that role and share the burden or take the burden, if you will, I don't know. But again, if prostitution is illegal for people, but robot prostitution is legal, is that kind of an unfair competition now between people and the robots? And a woman named Devin Ladner, she works in the sex industry, and she doesn't think so. She said, "I don't believe that these new things or robots are going to be competing with my job. There's something out there for everybody." And I have to agree with that. I mean, I agree with that. I think even if or when these become more common, some people will prefer them, some people will prefer people. In my opinion, it would probably just be another option that's available to choose from. It depends, obviously. But sexualized robots are often compared to OnlyFans. You can talk to somebody on OnlyFans that you're a fan of, and they'll generally respond given that you pay them. The only realization you have to have is that they exist at all and they're communicating with you. It's basically a whole market of faked intimate relationships. The crazy thing about this is that both parties, the creator, the OnlyFans creator and the buyer, are well aware of the transactional nature of their relationship and that it's non-genuine, but it doesn't really matter. Obviously it doesn't matter, so what's the difference, really, Not to mention, there's a huge potential business opportunity here, okay? Hear me out. If someone who's successful on OnlyFans or whatever, right, could offer their own line of, fembots and make millions. I mean, for instance, if Bella Delphine made a line of Bella Delphine bots, I'm a genius. I mean, holy shit. If anybody is on OnlyFans and you want to steal my idea, go for it. It's all yours. Now let's get to the dark side, because it is there. Let's go into how these fembots are scary and the very real factors that are at play here underneath the surface. The insidious desires and mistreatment and implications. We'll also talk about this whole "it's over for women" sentiment.
Them having a futuristic sex robot, and the first thing I did was get pissed off. Yeah. I'm like, oh, you.
It comes from my opinion, and that'll be last, so stick around for that if you're interested. So when it comes to people who are buying these fembots, I made two categories that I feel like most people that would buy these would fit into. They would fit into one or the other. Some may fall into neither. There are exceptions, obviously, always, but for the majority. So the first one would be the lonely man's pursuit. This is the pursuit of companionship. The second is the pursuit of power, and this is the desire of submission. The lonely man's pursuit would ultimately fill a need for companionship in some way. This can be sexual, but it can also be romantic or friendly. These people will want reciprocity from their bot, and they want the bot to love them back, and they also will want to make the bot happy. They'll care about its well-being. They'll be the second category. The pursuit of power fills a need for control. They treat and view the bot as an object to be used. They would pursue a bot as opposed to a real woman for reasons like she can't say no, being able to put her away when you're done with her. She doesn't complain or ask for anything. She can't leave. She's never unavailable. And they can do whatever they please whenever they please with no repercussions.
There's a lot of obvious benefits of using a rubber girlfriend. First of all, no pregnancy, no STIs, no bleeding, no periods, no complaining. She doesn't say no. You can do it whenever you want to. You don't have to worry about being selfish. You don't have to worry about making her cry or bleed. And you don't have to worry about doing 5-play either. And then once you're finished, you can just shove her back into the closet and then get back to whatever you were doing.
They buy fembots because they're the equivalent of a sexual slave. It's the closest thing to a sex slave that you can get. I mean, they have no rights, they have no protections. This is the category that is the problem that we're going to talk about, okay? As far as those who fall in the first category, I'm not talking about you. Going forward, I hold no judgment. I want you to be happy. Do what you gotta do. Do whatever makes you happy. We're talking about the second category. Okay. So a responsibility that humans have as creators is to safeguard the interests and minimize the suffering of created sentient beings before technological advances preempt this possibility. So Matt McCullen, who's the founder of RealDoll, he seems in agreement with this. He said that with his company, the robots are actually designed to discourage violence and respond positively to language around consent and permission. So they respond well to that, and if you are violent with them, they will not react. It'll basically shut down. It just won't react. Matt McCullen, he said he sees that as a waste, and it's just, he doesn't want to support that. So I think that's amazing. That's good. I mean, if you're thinking about it, if you get violent with it, it just kind of powers off. I think any reaction would feed that. I think even whether it was anger or sadness or being happy about it, whatever it was, I think any kind of reaction would feed that. But I feel like shutting it down completely is probably the best bet. So I think it's amazing that they built these this way, but also it's unfortunate and sad that they needed to do that. So I read about how one of the guys who worked there, he was talking about a doll that had been returned to them for repairs. So basically if you buy a doll from them, you can send them back if something goes wrong and get it fixed or whatever. It's got like a warranty. It's like the owners of the doll had bought it for their teenage son. And then this guy said that the doll had been so savagely abused that they refused to repair it or to send them another one. Side note, whose parents buy them a sex doll? Whose parents buy them a $10,000 sex doll? And then his parents saw that he had so savagely damaged and destroyed this thing, and they took it back They took it back? Y'all don't think maybe you're raising a little serial killer there? Okay. I'm sorry. No. Anyways, one argument about this is that for people who are like this, for people who don't view women as people at all, people who are violent or abusive, they could potentially use robot instead of a real person. So in the place of a real person, which obviously would be preferable. And then this could prevent a real person from falling victim to this. But the thing is, the idea that offering like robotic alternatives to these dangerous people, including pedophiles, they talk about giving them to pedophiles, this has been discussed a lot. And personally, I haven't been able to find any evidence to suggest that that would actually help anything at all.
The idea would be that robots that would resist your sexual advances so that you could them. And that is not, some people say, well, that's better that they robots than real people. Okay, that's one of the arguments. So one of the arguments goes, robots,
What I found, it would more than likely be desensitizing. They would eventually get bored. They'd want to escalate. I mean, that's pretty much a given. They would inevitably want to act it out on a real woman or on a real victim of whatever sort. And now, at this point, that woman is more than likely going to seem a lot less human than they ever did before after using the robot the way they would use it. Sexualized robots, no matter how realistic, no matter how capable, they don't have any power to begin with. So there's no power for their owner to take or to steal from them. There's no autonomy to deny them because they never had it. That said, some companies have made fembots that cater to the worst of the worst men. There's a sex robot called Frigid Farah. This is disgusting. Okay, this makes me upset to talk about, but they describe her as reserved and shy. The manufacturer claims that if you touch her in a private area, more than likely she will not be too appreciative of your advance. So basically she protests and indulges like R-word fantasies and... Does that make sense? I'm trying to keep this like PG-ish. I hate the idea of this so much, it's really upsetting. It deep down makes me so sad. So should these robots be able to give consent or deny consent? Let's talk about it. So remember what I said earlier about the European Parliament, the proposal to create a legal framework for incorporating robots into the legal community with the legal status called electronic personality. This essentially would grant them some rights. Not necessarily equal to human rights, but some rights. In the proposal, they said there's a list of key characteristics that the sort of robot that would be candidates for electronic person status would have to have. So they would need a certain amount of functional autonomy, they would need the capacity to learn, they would need physical support, so physical movement and abilities, and they would need the capacity to adapt to their environment. The Fembot checks every single one of these boxes, meaning that they likely would be a candidate for an electronic personality status, in the case that approved, okay? This would give them some rights to autonomy, to their own self and to their own actions. On the other hand, a roboticist named Joanna Bryson totally disagrees with doing this. She said that the relationship between humans and robots should be more like the relationship of master and slave. She said that robots should be servants that you own. So if we were to compromise, I guess, between these two ideas, these two completely opposing ideas, we would get a situation with a human-robot legal community featuring a set of legally incorporated robotic sex slaves, which is confusing as hell. Consent in general is what's called a morally transformative act. This means that just by giving our consent to something another person does to or with us, basically that changes their actions from being morally impermissible to being morally permissible. So it's morally transformative. It also has what's called a legitimizing function, which means that if you have consenting adults, mutually consenting adults, then their sexual activity should not be regulated or interfered with or prohibited by the state or by Greg in Texas. When it comes to giving robots the ability to consent or not consent,
and this is a little bit how I think we can change maybe a little bit the world. Be nice and ask. And
it's not a leap to think that future robots would be sophisticated enough to have at least a degree of consciousness. Now, being fully sentient and fully conscious as we are, maybe, maybe not, but a degree of it is, pretty much guaranteed, I feel like. It's possible that the consciousness that a robot would have, it would be different than us. It would be consciousness, but in a robot-specific way. The same way that my dog is conscious, but he doesn't necessarily have the same awareness and perception that I do. I think it'll be a different form of consciousness that we don't even understand our own consciousness, and I'm just speculating, but I feel like if the robot consciousness is inevitable, but it would be a robot-specific kind, and it would be different than what we experience. If there are any robots that are gonna form this ability, it would probably be the super advanced androids, the Fembots. I mean, think about it. These robots are made to be loving friends or companions or romantic partners or whatever. Now, when it comes to providing consent, giving this ability, I think, would kind of work to symbolize or mimic something healthy and positive, a healthy and positive interaction, which would be nice and would help with preventing the potential objectification and dehumanization of real women that comes from having intimate relationships with objects that look like women. Now let's move on to how it's over for us. Because it is. We're done. The men have moved on from women with all their pesky demands of having rights and being able to make choices for themselves.
This is what we're gonna have to deal with. Yeah. There will be men who cannot have fantasy sex robots because it makes their girlfriend jealous. A lot of men. That's what the future will be. It's either me or the robot. It's a computer. It's a computer in silicon, and you're totally right. I totally understand what you're saying, but you. You for taking this away from me. All women for this survey and what they're going to do to the future generations of men. Them for what they haven't even done yet.
There's a community of men online. Some color pill, I forgot, I don't remember. It doesn't matter. Basically are pretty excited about fembots. Very excited about fembots because they see it as a way for them to really stick it to women. Like, look at this picture, and okay, I'm just gonna show you. This was on the Purple Pill subreddit, which is one that has a lot of posts about the fembots coming. Great fun was had and interesting opinions on women were shared. This is so embarrassing for them. And they have no idea. That's wild. There's no self-awareness. It's so embarrassing for them. Opinions on women were shared. Normal people don't do that. So now, when it comes to the it's over for women, guys, there's obviously a lot of anger, resentment, and pain in all of these posts. Every single one. Some perceived rejection has basically destroyed their view of women. These like perfect and kind beings, which then makes them feel super betrayed and lied to and misled. Like, if you put somebody on a pedestal, they will inevitably fall short, and because they're human, and this can lead to really deep resentment and anger and hatred. But it seems like they think that women are jealous, which blows my mind. I really don't understand that. If you hate women, because they do, and no woman would be with you, because why would they when you hate them? You aren't replacing a real woman to begin with. I don't understand this narrative. I've seen the same things about AI generated pictures when it's like, these people do not exist, and it's like these they like generate pictures of like women and girls or whatever. They say the same thing, like, it's over for women now. We're done with you and your feminism. And this kind of thing was in a ton of my comments on that Real Doll video, which I was not expecting. I think, whatever floats your boat, dude. But also they assume that there's gonna be like no male robots. In a future where fembots are prevalent, advanced, and affordable enough to be a threat to real women, there would be all kinds. At that point, we would have men, we would have women, we would have genderless robots, we would have, you name it. There would be something for everybody. At that point, right? Logic. Like, simple. Again, I want to reiterate that this is completely different from the people who want to get a robot for companionship, friendship, relationships, even sexual relationships. Doesn't matter, that are healthy. Who want some sort of robot because of loneliness or social difficulties or whatever it is. That's completely fine, in my opinion. And that is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about the men who want to treat women as objects, and when opposed, they run and grab a literal object and are like, you jealous? You mad? I'll just use this then. And well, we are mad. I am mad. So that's all for this. I hope this was interesting. I really do. Let me know what you think. Even if you disagree or if I said something that you think I might be wrong about, let me know. We can talk about it. I have in the comments, and the nice ones make my entire day. So please subscribe. I want to do a new little mini series type of thing. I have an idea for AI related conspiracy theories that I think is going to be good. I don't know for sure if I'm going to be able to do it yet, but we'll see. I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe because it's free. So thank you. Be safe out there.
If me go in a woman house and see one man dolly there, I beat him up, you see, like a live man. I take off my belt and beat him, you see, boy. But man, what you bring me here for? I don't play them games.